It was a Tuesday afternoon when I found it. I wasn't looking for anything in particular. I'd come home early from work, a rare half-day gifted by an unusually gracious client. Vanessa wasn't home. She was still at the hospital, finishing her shift. The kids were at my mother's. The house was quiet, soft sunlight spilling through the bedroom window and stretching long shadows across the floor. I wasn't snooping. I need to make that clear. I wasn't suspicious yet. Not then. I was looking for a box. One of those old shoe boxes that had our wedding photos. The real ones, not the filtered ones on the wall. I wanted to pull them out and do something sweet. Maybe surprise her with a frame. We'd been distant lately, and I thought maybe a sentimental nudge might help bridge whatever silent gap had grown between us. I opened the closet, and it hit me. That faint scent of cologne I didn't recognize. Now, I'm a scent guy. I don't wear any myself, but I notice them. I notice when Vanessa changes perfumes, when her shampoo brand shifts. I can smell the cinnamon from a candle across the house. So, this cologne, woodsy, sharp, expensive, it didn't belong. It didn't belong in our closet. Not among my basic t-shirts and her faded scrubs. Then I saw it, wedged between my dark gray pea coat and a winter jacket I hadn't worn in 2 years. A jacket. Men's. Black. Not mine. That was the first thing I knew with certainty. It wasn't mine. Wrong size. Wrong brand. Wrong everything. I hadn't bought a new jacket in 3 years. I remember them all. And this thing, was unfamiliar in every stitch. A leather bomber jacket, soft to the touch, worn in but not in a rugged, well-loved way. No, this was stylish. Trendy. Too modern for me. I pulled it out. It was heavier than I expected. It smelled faintly of that same cologne. The lining was stitched with a red thread, a detail too specific to ignore. I checked the pockets. Empty. No wallet. No receipts. No keys. But it was warm. Recently worn. My hands were shaking, I realized. I stood there in our bedroom, holding this stranger's jacket like it was radioactive. My pulse was loud in my ears. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at it for what felt like an hour. When I heard the garage door open, I panicked. I stuffed the jacket back between the coats and closed the closet door, trying to compose myself. My breath was shallow, heart racing as if I'd just run a marathon. Vanessa walked in moments later, keys jingling, calling out the usual, "Hey babe, I'm home." I couldn't respond. I was in the bathroom, gripping the sink, staring at myself in the mirror. I looked off. She didn't notice. Later that evening, I brought it up casually. Casually, as if I hadn't already spun 20 versions of Betrayal in my head. "Hey, when did you buy a new jacket for me?" I asked, spooning mashed potatoes onto my plate. She looked up from her phone. "Huh? The black leather one in the closet." She blinked. "Oh, that one. That's yours, isn't it?" I didn't look up. "No, it's not." She laughed a little. "Are you sure? I could have sworn you had something like that from," she paused. "Like last Christmas?" I shook my head slowly. "No, I've never owned anything like that." She put her phone down. Her expression was unreadable. "Well, maybe you left it somewhere and forgot? Or someone gave it to you at work. People forget stuff." I looked at her carefully. "No, I'd remember." Her eyes narrowed, but only slightly. "Well then, I don't know. Maybe my brother left it last time he visited? David lives in Miami. He hasn't visited in over a year." She stood, picking up her plate. "I don't know, okay? It's just a jacket." She walked into the kitchen before I could say more. The sound of the faucet drowned the silence that followed. Just a jacket. I didn't sleep well that night. That week, the jacket stayed in the closet. I didn't move it. I didn't touch it again. I watched Vanessa more closely. Not because I wanted to, but because something shifted inside me that day. Something fundamental. Doubt had crept in through the smallest of cracks, and it was spreading. On Thursday, while she showered, I checked the closet again. The jacket was gone. I opened drawers. Looked under the bed. Nothing. I didn't ask her about it. I didn't want to hear another lie. But now the unease was consuming me. I started noticing other things. Subtle things. The way she always took her phone with her, even into the bathroom. The new lingerie tags I found in the trash, sets I hadn't seen on her. The random canceled plans. The late shifts. The unreadable texts that popped up and disappeared before I could glance twice. Our intimacy changed. It became scripted. Mechanical. Every smile felt rehearsed. I began waking up at odd hours, checking to see if she was in bed. She always was. but her breathing sounded different. Too even. Like she was pretending to be asleep. Friday, I did something I never thought I would. I left work early and followed her. She didn't go to the hospital. She drove across town and parked behind a beige office building. Waited in the car for about 10 minutes, then went inside. No scrubs. No ID badge. She was in jeans and a navy blouse I'd never seen. She didn't come out for over 2 hours. When she did, she wasn't alone. A man followed her. Tall. Tan coat. Aviator sunglasses. They didn't touch, not quite. But their body language, the way they moved in tandem, made my chest tighten. I ducked lower in my seat. They stood talking for a minute. Then he reached out and brushed something off her shoulder. She smiled. And just like that, he turned and walked away. She got back in her car and drove off. I didn't follow her after that. I couldn't. Back home, I sat in the garage, car running, heart pounding, unsure whether I wanted to scream or sob. That night, I held her while she slept. Or pretended to. My arms around her waist. My face buried in her hair. She smelled like him. That cologne again, faint, but unmistakable. And I knew. I didn't need to ask. I didn't need a confession. I already had all the answers I needed. But I wasn't going to leave. Not yet. Because before I walked away from the life we built, I needed to know exactly who he was, what he meant to her, and why she brought his jacket into our home. In the weeks that followed, I became two people. There was the man Vanessa saw, quiet, tired, occasionally distracted, but loving, always loving. Then there was the other me, the man who no longer trusted the shape of his own life, who studied everything behind glass, calculating its weight and value, asking again and again, is this real? I wasn't the confrontational type. Never had been. But I knew how to wait, how to study a pattern. My work in systems engineering trained me to find flaws, trace anomalies back to their source. In some perverse way, this was just another broken system. One I had helped build. One I was determined to dismantle. The man from the parking lot haunted me. I couldn't unsee him. The easy way he stood beside her. That familiar proximity. The lack of hesitation. Whoever he was, this wasn't a fling. This was established. So I started small. I checked her calendar. Nothing unusual. Schedules aligned with her job at the hospital. No glaring absences. But her phone, it never left her sight. Even when she showered, it sat screen up on the sink like a sentinel. One evening, while she was bathing the kids, I synced her cloud backup to my work laptop. I knew her Apple ID. She hadn't changed it. I watched as a flood of data poured in. Photos, app logs, location history. One photo stopped me cold. A picture of the jacket. The stranger's jacket. Folded neatly on a chair beside a half-empty wine glass and a book I didn't recognize. The timestamp, 6 weeks ago. Friday. She'd told me she had to cover a late shift. I stared at it for a long time. Zoomed in. No face. No reflection. Just that jacket, like a monument left behind after a forgotten war. It wasn't proof. Not on its own. But it was a breadcrumb. And there were more. In her notes app, buried between grocery lists and workout plans, I found a locked note. I tried her birthday. Our anniversary. The kids' names. Nothing worked. It mocked me. A glowing rectangle holding answers I couldn't reach. I kept digging. Eventually, in the Photos app, I found a short video. 2 seconds, likely an accidental capture. Just her voice, faint. I'm already on my way, she said, followed by laughter. A man's, not mine. Deep, confident, familiar. I played it again. And again. I wasn't even angry anymore. I just needed to know. I started showing up at her workplace. Unannounced. At first, she smiled, flattered. What's the occasion? She'd ask. Thought I'd surprise you. I'd reply. But I wasn't there for her. I was there to study her coworkers. I needed to see if anyone flinched. The hospital was too big, though. Too many faces. No way to know for sure who belonged in her orbit. Everyone was friendly. Too friendly. I began to hate the sound of greetings. Hi, Vanessa. Morning, love. Coffee's in the break room. All I heard was lies, lies, lies. Then, by chance, I found the key. Her smartwatch. She never wore it at night. Always left it on the charger beside the bed. It was synced to her phone. One night, while she slept, I slipped it on and scrolled through her fitness data. Most of it was benign, steps, heart rate, sleep cycles. But then I saw something curious. Elevated heart rates. Late nights. Between 11:40 p.m. and 12:15 a.m. 3 weeks in a row, Thursdays. Consistent, high spikes. Like she'd been running a marathon in bed. Only I wasn't there on those nights. She told me she was on call. I checked the data again. No steps recorded during those windows. She hadn't been walking. Just lying there. Heart pounding. Adrenaline. I imagined her in a hotel or someone else's apartment. The stranger's jacket on a chair. Him on top of her. Her body betraying her, even if her words never would. I pulled off the watch and set it down like it had burned me. The next morning, she kissed me softly and asked if I wanted eggs. I nodded, smiling. My insides were charcoal. Later that week, while she was in the shower, I went back to the closet. The jacket had returned. I pulled it out, slowly this time, like an archaeologist uncovering something sacred and damned. I checked the pockets again. This time, there was something. A receipt. I held it delicately, afraid it might disintegrate. Coffee shop. 4 blocks from our house. Paid in cash. 1 croissant. 2 Americanos. Dated 3 days ago. I flipped it over. A name was scrawled on the back in pen. Elliot. I sat on the bed, letting the name settle. Elliot. Not familiar. Not a friend. Not family. I checked her contacts. No Elliot. No texts. I tried the local search on her phone for Elliot. Nothing. I looked again at the handwriting. It wasn't hers. Sloppier. Masculine. Confident. So now I had a name. I waited a few days. Played the part. Laughed at her jokes. Tucked the kids in. Said, I love you, like it still meant something. But every moment was performative. I was staging my own quiet rebellion. I went to the coffee shop. Ordered nothing. Sat at a back table and waited. Watched. On the 3rd day, I saw him. He walked in like he belonged everywhere. Leather jacket. Aviators. Dark hair graying at the temples. He ordered 2 Americanos and 1 croissant. Exactly like the receipt. I took a photo of him with my phone, heart hammering. I waited until he left. Then I followed. He lived in a high-rise across town. Expensive. Clean. Anonymous. Over the next week, I tracked him. Elliot. No last name yet. But I learned his habits. He went to a boxing gym twice a week. Ate at a quiet Thai place on Thursdays. Drove a BMW with government plates. That caught my attention. Government. I did some research. Public records. LinkedIn. Eventually I found him. Elliot Shaw. Consultant for the Department of Homeland Security. Divorced. No kids. Age 44. Suddenly I saw it. The draw. The older man. The mystique. The safe danger. I wondered what lies she told him about me. If I was the boring husband. The distant father. The obstacle. I wondered if he knew she still slept in my bed. I printed his photo and tucked it into my work binder, like a reminder. This is the man who walked into your life and took what was yours. And then, a week later, everything changed again. I came home early. Again. The house was too quiet. I went upstairs. Our bedroom door was ajar. I pushed it open. And there, sitting on the bed, flipping through our wedding album, was Elliot, wearing the jacket. My breath caught in my throat. He looked up, startled. We stared at each other for what felt like an eternity. No words. Just the weight of realization crashing between us like a falling chandelier. Who are you? I asked finally, my voice low. He stood, slowly, placing the album beside him. I could ask you the same thing, he replied. There are moments when the air seems to stop moving. When your body forgets what to do, forgets how to breathe, how to blink. That's what it felt like, standing in my bedroom doorway, face to face with the man who didn't belong. The man who had, in some hidden way, already rewritten everything I thought I understood about my life. Elliot. His name sat heavy in my mind, pressing into the back of my skull like a fever. He didn't move. Neither did I. I'm her husband. I said finally, each word like gravel on my tongue. A flicker of recognition passed over his face. Not surprise, not quite. More like quiet calculation. He nodded once, then looked down at the wedding album again, still open beside him like a crime scene. She said you traveled a lot. He replied evenly, his voice smooth, practiced. That one sentence, casually spoken, nearly unhinged me. I don't, I said. I'm here almost every day. I work 10 minutes away. He didn't respond. Just stood there, watching me. Calm. Too calm. I stepped into the room. The air felt like water. Thick, resistant. What are you doing in my house? I asked. He shrugged slightly. She said she left the garage door open for me. I've been here before. Thought I'd surprise her. His words were deliberate. No apology. No shame. I should have lunged at him. Should have dragged him down the stairs by his collar and dumped him on the lawn. But something stopped me. I wanted answers more than blood. And he didn't look afraid. He looked at me like I was a minor inconvenience. Like he wasn't intruding. Like I didn't belong. She's not here, I said. I know, he said, glancing at his watch. She texted me a few minutes ago. Asked me to meet her here at 4. It was 3:47. A nauseating silence passed between us. She didn't tell you? He asked. I stared at him, silent. He raised an eyebrow, then stepped toward me. Not aggressive. Measured. I'm guessing this is the part where you tell me she's been lying to us both, he said. She hasn't been lying to me, I replied coldly. Not anymore. He seemed to study me then, as if reassessing. Right, he said. So this is a setup. I didn't answer. Because he wasn't wrong. I had hoped she'd show up while he was still here. Hoped I'd catch them together. Now that I had, the reality felt worse than the fantasy. My chest was tight. My mouth dry. I noticed the way he scanned the room. Not nervously, but with familiarity. His gaze passed over the bookshelf, the framed photo of our kids, the dresser with her perfumes. He knew this space. He'd been here before. My jaw clenched. She let you in? I asked, quieter now. Yes. She brought you here, where our children sleep. He didn't flinch, but something in his expression shifted. Not guilt, but maybe a sliver of discomfort. I didn't know at first, he admitted. She said she was separated, that you were moving out, that the house was in limbo. I laughed bitterly. That's funny. She never mentioned divorce to me. A pause. Then he said, she told me you were emotionally gone, that you'd disconnected, that you'd stopped caring. I almost smiled. That's rich, I said, considering how hard I've worked to hold this family together. The sound of the garage door rolling open downstairs sliced through the silence. We both froze. Then, slow and deliberate, Elliot took off his jacket, that jacket, and draped it neatly over the foot of the bed. I turned toward the door. She was home. Her footsteps sounded light. Carefree. She didn't know. Not yet. The first thing I saw when she appeared in the hallway was her smile. That soft, automatic expression she wore when she thought everything was fine, when the world was still intact. It vanished the moment she saw us. Her eyes darted from me to Elliot and back again, her expression collapsing like a dying star. What's going on? She asked, voice brittle. Neither of us answered. She stepped inside the room slowly, as if hoping the scene might dissolve if she moved carefully enough. I watched her take in the details. The jacket, the wedding album still open to the page where we kissed under a burst of confetti. Elliot, standing to her left. Me, standing to her right. And then, for a moment, she said nothing. Just pressed a hand to her mouth like she might be sick. I didn't expect, she began, then stopped. You didn't expect me to come home early? I offered. She met my eyes then. Fully. The pretense had dropped. There was no soft denial, no weak excuse. Just a terrible, awful quiet. How long? I asked. Elliot stepped aside, out of my way, as if this part wasn't his to narrate. Vanessa hesitated. Then, 8 months. It hit me in the stomach. 8 months, I repeated. While you smiled. While you kissed me goodnight. While you helped James with his math homework and packed Sonia's lunch. I didn't mean for it to happen, she said softly. I laughed, a sharp, humorless sound. That's always how these stories start. She looked toward Elliot, but he kept his gaze low, no longer interested in playing savior. I thought we were broken, she whispered. I wanted to scream, but I didn't. I just shook my head. We were tired, I said. Tired doesn't mean broken. Marriage isn't always fireworks. Sometimes it's just staying, showing up. Tears welled in her eyes, but they didn't move me. I made a mistake, she said. No, I replied. You made 1,000 little choices, each one more selfish than the last. A silence fell then, heavy and terrible. Vanessa looked between us. I think you both deserve to know the truth, she said quietly. Elliot looked up. I stared at her. She inhaled slowly, then said, I ended it. With him. 2 weeks ago. That made Elliot blink. What? I couldn't live like this anymore, she said. It wasn't fair. Not to you. Not to him. I told him it was over. I asked him not to come back here. He turned toward her. Then why did you text me today? She froze. I didn't. You did. You said meet me here at 4. She looked pale now. No, I didn't. I reached into my pocket, pulled out her smartwatch, the one she hadn't worn in days. Maybe your watch did it for you. Her mouth opened slightly, confused. I turned to Elliot. You didn't get a message today? I said. You got one 3 days ago? I intercepted it. And I responded. From her watch. He looked at me, and for the first time, something like admiration flickered in his eyes. You set this up, he said. I did, I replied. Vanessa looked at me, wide-eyed. You wanted the truth, I said. And then, just as I opened my mouth to continue, my phone vibrated. A text. One word. Delivered. I stared at it, stunned. Because it wasn't from anyone I recognized. Just a number. Blocked now. But the message hit me like a freight train. It meant the photos I took, the ones of Elliot and Vanessa at the coffee shop, in the parking lot, in our bedroom, had been sent. To someone. Not me. Not her. To someone else. My stomach dropped. I looked at Vanessa. And then I realized. There was someone else involved. Someone who had been watching me. Someone who had just joined the game. I didn't say anything when the message came through. Not right away. Vanessa and Elliot were still frozen in the tension of our last exchange. She clutching the edges of her cardigan like it could shield her from what was coming. He standing a few steps back, his jaw tight, posture tense. But all I could see was that word. Delivered. The sender had already vanished. A burner number, likely. Untraceable. Someone was watching me. Someone knew I'd been digging. The realization settled over me like a slow, cold tide. Every moment, I thought I'd been the only one orchestrating this quiet unraveling. I wasn't. I'd walked into a play already in motion, thinking I'd written the script. I looked up from the screen and quietly slipped the phone into my back pocket. Vanessa caught the movement. What was that? She asked. Nothing. I lied too easily. Her eyes narrowed, but before she could press, Elliot stepped forward. I need to go, he said flatly. This was a mistake. Vanessa turned sharply. Elliot. He cut her off. You told me it was over. That you needed space. That you were figuring things out. But you didn't say your husband was setting traps in your bedroom. She flinched. I didn't know. He looked past her and right at me. You're good. Really good. You ever think about working in counterintel? I didn't respond. He turned, grabbed his jacket from the bed, that damn jacket, and walked past me without another word. The door shut downstairs a few seconds later. Vanessa and I stood there in the echo of his absence. When she spoke again, her voice had changed. Harder. Sharper. What did you send? She asked. I turned to her slowly. What do you mean? On your phone, she said. I saw the screen. You sent something. I shook my head. No. Someone sent me something. She crossed her arms. Don't play games, Nate. Not anymore, I said. But I think someone else is. She looked confused. What are you talking about? I reached into my other pocket and handed her a printed photo. The one I'd taken of her and Elliot outside the Thai place. Arms touching, faces too close. She stared at it in silence. I didn't send this, I said. But someone else did. Just now. From a blocked number. They sent me this exact image. Which means they also had it. Vanessa looked up, face pale. How? I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Someone else had been following them. Someone else had been documenting this. Maybe even before I started. A third player. Who would want to do that? She whispered. I don't know, I said. But I was lying. I had a theory. I just didn't want to speak it aloud yet. Because it was impossible. Or so I thought. The next day, I went into the office like everything was normal. Vanessa stayed home. We barely spoke that morning. I think we were both in a kind of shell shock. Her from being exposed. Me from learning I was never in control to begin with. I closed my office door and stared at my laptop screen for an hour, unable to work. My mind kept cycling through possibilities. Who had eyes on them? Who had my photo? And why wait until now to reveal themselves? Then I remembered the name on the coffee shop receipt. Elliot. But there had been something else, a logo, tiny and embossed into the upper right corner. I pulled out the original receipt again from my briefcase. Sterling House Cafe. Downtown. Near the courthouse. I called. Sterling House, how can I help you? Hi. I'm trying to get in touch with someone who works there. They left something important for me last week, a leather jacket. Do you have a lost and found? We do, the woman replied. Can you describe it? Black leather, red stitching inside. A pause. Oh, that one. Yeah, someone picked it up yesterday. Who? I'm sorry, we can't give out customer information. I hesitated. It's really important. It may be connected to a police report. Could you tell me anything? Another pause. Then, softer. It was a woman. Tall. Maybe late 30s. Red hair. Said she was picking it up for her partner. My blood ran cold. Red hair. I only knew one woman in our lives with red hair. Vanessa's sister, Chloe. The words slammed into me like a brick wall. I hadn't thought of her in months. She lived out of state, traveled a lot. We only saw her once or twice a year. But she and Vanessa had always been close, the kind of close that felt private, impenetrable. And now she was suddenly involved? I hung up the phone and stared at the wall for a long time. Why would Chloe pick up Elliot's jacket? Unless it wasn't Elliot's. Unless the jacket never belonged to him at all. Unless it belonged to someone else. And he was just the distraction, the visible threat, while Chloe worked in the background. But why? What could she possibly want? And then, all at once, I remembered something. 2 years ago, the ski trip. Vanessa, Chloe, and me. The cabin in Vermont. It snowed for 3 days straight. Vanessa had food poisoning and spent most of the weekend sleeping. Chloe and I played board games. Talked. Drank. We were up late one night. Too late. She leaned in close. Said things I shouldn't have let her say. And when I got up to leave the room, she touched my arm. Too long, too gently. I didn't act on it. But I didn't shut it down either. The memory had faded. A half-regret I buried and forgot. Until now. She remembered. Was this her revenge? Had she found Elliot? Had she fed him to Vanessa? Manipulated them both? It was too elaborate. Too cruel. But somehow it fit. The jacket. The photos. The planted receipt. All tools. All breadcrumbs. All part of a bigger plan. I needed confirmation. So I called her. Chloe, I said when she picked up. Hey, stranger, she said. Too sweet. Been a while. Yeah, I said. Listen, I found a jacket in our house a few weeks ago. Leather. Red stitching. Belonged to one of Vanessa's friends. You wouldn't happen to know anything about it, would you? There was a pause. Then she said, well, that depends. Is this a friendly call? Or are we playing detective now? Something about her voice chilled me. I just want the truth, I said. Don't we all? She murmured. Another pause. Then she said something I'll never forget. Sometimes, she said, you have to tear something down to see what it's really made of. Then she hung up. I stared at the phone, stunned. Because in those 10 words, she confirmed everything. She had engineered this. She had used me. Used Vanessa. Used Elliot. To what end? I didn't yet understand. But it wasn't over. Not yet. That evening, when I returned home, Vanessa was sitting on the edge of the bed, staring at the wedding album. She didn't look up when I entered. I need to tell you something, I said. She turned slowly. I think Chloe set us up. Her eyes narrowed. What are you talking about? I sat beside her. The jacket. The photos. The text I got. I think Chloe orchestrated it all. She shook her head. Why would she? And then she stopped. She was remembering, too. The ski trip. The late nights. The wine. I never told her anything, I said. She looked at me, tears starting to form. But she saw something, she whispered. And maybe that was all it took. The silence held us for a moment longer. And then, downstairs, a noise shattered it. A knock. 3 firm taps on the front door. Vanessa and I stared at each other. Neither of us moved. And then my phone buzzed again. Another blocked number. Another single word. Surprise. The knock echoed through the house like a gunshot. 3 raps. No doorbell. No movement outside the frosted window beside the entryway. Just the sound. Just that unnerving certainty that someone was waiting. Vanessa looked at me, frozen. Her face was pale, drawn tight with fear and confusion. I stood slowly. Stay here, I said. I moved down the hall, each step heavier than the last. The floorboards creaked in protest, the overhead lights suddenly too bright, too clinical. The front door loomed ahead, still, silent, a threshold I didn't want to cross. I checked the peephole. Nobody. Then I looked down. There, on the welcome mat, was a box. Plain. Unmarked. I opened the door cautiously, half expecting someone to lunge from the bushes. But the porch was empty. The neighborhood still and quiet under a charcoal gray dusk. I picked up the box. It was lighter than expected. No sound when shaken. Back inside, I set it on the dining table and opened it slowly. Inside was a single item. A USB drive. And underneath it, a single piece of stationery. Thick cream stock. Embossed initials in the top right corner. C. S. Vanessa had come down the stairs by then, her eyes locked on the box. I held up the note. Press play. Tell her the truth. Or I will. No signature. But we didn't need one. We both knew who CS was. Do you think she's bluffing? Vanessa whispered. I don't know, I said. But I'm tired of guessing. I walked to my office, plugged the drive into my laptop. There was one file. The Weekend. MP4-inch. I clicked it. The video was grainy, low-res. Shot from across a street, likely from a parked car. The footage showed Vanessa entering a boutique hotel downtown. She wore a black coat, sunglasses, slipped through the front doors like she'd done it a dozen times. 3 minutes later, Elliot entered. They didn't kiss. No touching. Just a casual conversation. Then they both disappeared through the elevator doors. The footage cut to the following morning. Elliot exited alone. Vanessa followed 2 minutes later. Different clothes. Same sunglasses. Then the footage ended. And the screen went black. No commentary. No edits. Just cold evidence. Vanessa had gone silent behind me. You didn't tell me about the hotel, I said, my voice even. She didn't answer right away. I told you I ended it 2 weeks ago, she said finally. But this was last weekend. A beat. Then, softly. It was supposed to be goodbye. I turned in my chair. She looked smaller somehow. Deflated. I didn't know Chloe would be there, she added. I didn't even know she was in town. But that wasn't what mattered anymore. What mattered was that Chloe had the footage. That she'd been watching for weeks, maybe months. And that she had turned our entire marriage into a stage play. So what does she want? Vanessa asked. It was a fair question. Revenge? Validation? Or something more? I returned to the box. Checked under the tissue paper. At the bottom, tucked neatly, was another note. You made your choices, Vanessa. Now it's my turn. Beneath it, a photo. Not of Vanessa. Not of Elliot. Of me. On the ski trip. In the cabin. Sitting too close to the fireplace. Too close to Chloe. My arm extended, handing her a glass of wine. Her hand touching my knee. It wasn't explicit, but it was suggestive enough. Vanessa stared at it. Her face hardened. You told me nothing happened. It didn't, I said quickly. I swear to you. That moment lasted maybe 5 seconds. I pulled away. But Vanessa wasn't looking at me anymore. She was staring at the picture like it had cracked something in her. And that's when I realized Chloe hadn't just come for her. She'd come for both of us. She wasn't taking sides. She was taking control. That night, after the kids were asleep, Vanessa and I sat on opposite ends of the couch, the USB drive sitting between us like a live grenade. She's not done, I said. No, Vanessa replied. She never is. I looked at her then. Really looked. The lines under her eyes. The way her hands twisted nervously in her lap. We had been circling each other for months, maybe years. Avoiding truths. Avoiding discomfort. Filling the space with routine and obligation and the illusion of stability. Now it was all gone. I should have told you the second it started, she said. And I should have told you about the cabin. We both nodded, the quiet admission heavy in the air. So what do we do? She asked. It wasn't a challenge. It was a plea. I didn't have a real answer. But I had an idea. The next morning, I wrote Chloe an email. Subject, let's talk. Body, you've made your point. But I think we should meet in person, just the two of us. No games. Just truth. She replied in 4 minutes. Park bench. Across from the old train depot. Noon. When I arrived, she was already there. Dressed in a long gray coat, red hair tied back. She looked calm. Pleased, even. Hello, Nate, she said, not bothering to stand. Saturday, you've had your fun, I said. What do you want? She smiled. To set the record straight. By destroying us. By holding a mirror up, she said. I didn't invent anything. I just helped you both see what was already there. That's easy to say when you're not the one picking up the pieces. She tilted her head. Aren't you? Or are you just trying to rewrite your guilt? I didn't respond. She continued. I gave Vanessa the jacket, she said. I told her it was an old gift I didn't want anymore. I knew she'd ask about it eventually. I knew she'd lie. And Elliot? A friend of a friend, she said with a shrug. He liked danger. I gave him a nudge. You orchestrated this whole thing. I facilitated it, she said. You lit your own match. I stared at her. You could have just told her about Vermont. She wouldn't have believed me. But she'd believe herself. Her own guilt. Her own betrayal. She leaned in closer. You want to hate me, Nate? Go ahead. But you and I both know this was always going to happen. I just made sure it happened cleanly. I stood. I hope whatever satisfaction you got from this is worth it. She smiled. It was never about satisfaction. It was about truth. I left without another word. That night, I told Vanessa everything. What Chloe had said, what she had done, what she'd planned. Vanessa didn't cry. She just sat there, silent. And then, finally, she said, "We need to let her go." I nodded. And we did. We deleted the videos, burned the photos, blocked every number. We told the kids we were going on a trip, just the four of us, to somewhere quiet, to start again. Not because we had fixed everything, but because we were choosing to try. Weeks later, I found the jacket again. It was buried in the trunk of Vanessa's car, folded neatly, like a relic. I pulled it out, held it one last time. Then I walked it to the edge of the fire pit and dropped it in. The leather cracked and hissed as the flames rose, swallowing the red-stitched lining in seconds. It didn't fix anything. It didn't erase the past, but it ended her story, and maybe, just maybe, gave ours a second chance.